Redditors who worked at defunct stores, Blockbuster, Circuit City, etc. When did you realize they were done for? Former Compusa employee. The speed at which they started changing the slogan increased. They introduced and rescinded a rewards loyalty program inside of 6 months, and they started pushing bait and switch selling tactics in our monthly store meetings. I handed in my resignation the day before they announced a company closing. Also worked at Comp, October 05 April 08. I worked through the bankruptcy, liquidation, and was one of the only employees to actually be there on the day we locked the doors for the last time. My first shift was the day the Xbox 360 launched. The company itself was fucked up, but I really liked most of my coworkers, so I stuck around. Our store survived the first round of closings, although 1/3 of the staff was called into the GM's office and given their walking papers that day with no warning. Our sales were shit long before that, and we all knew the place was going to fold eventually, but it was still a bit of a shock. The biggest clue that shit was about to go down was about a month before they announced bankruptcy. I was the warehouse supervisor at that time, supervising myself pretty much by that point lol. Every morning I would check the printer for the transfer orders. Corporate would constantly freight balance stores, so a few a day was pretty typical until the day I walked in and there was like 30 fucking pages of transfers sitting there waiting for me, multiple page lists. They pretty much wanted transfers of all of our worthwhile shit to a distribution center in Mexico. I palletized tons and tons of Mac Pros, plasma TVs, huge laser printers, laptops, desktops, anything that wasn't complete and utter garbage, and sent along at least 8 pallets of shit out a few days later. We sold off like 1/3 of our displays over the next couple weeks at a deep discount. Shit looked half empty. I was also in charge of managing the planograms being set, which was done by regular sales floor guys, and my GM was like, where are the new planograms? Kept emailing corporate, kept getting bullshit canned responses, and that's when I pretty much knew. Bankruptcy was announced and a security guard showed up unannounced at my store to make sure employees didn't immediately start looting the place. So yeah, moral of the story is Carlos Slim Helu likely consolidated a shitload of the merchandise in a foreign country just before declaring bankruptcy and likely bilked tons of creditors out of millions of dollars worth of stolen assets. Hooray anyways, the liquidation was fucking awesome. I scored so much shit for pennies on the dollar because I was in good with our liquidation rep from Gordon Brothers. $2,000 IMAC for $100. 50 plasma for $50. $400 PDA for $25 bucks. We bought Xbox Live points and time cards for literally pennies, ditto Nintendo Wii points. I bought like the entire library on Virtual Console for less than $2 lol. Every single DLC track for Guitar Hero and Rock Band. I had years of Xbox Live time, and I never ended up paying for Live again, having stopped playing console games in lieu of PC. And of course it was fun as shit moving racking that hadn't been moved in decades and finding 3.5 floppies, PC magazines from the early 90s, coupons that expired when some of the youngest kids were being born. And we fucked off a lot. I spent entire shifts playing games on the demo PS3 unit. The last day, when the store was completely empty of everything, I brought my guitar and amp and played music for much of the day, while some of the other guys played cards and a few others skateboarded around the floor. Ordered pizza for lunch, knocked off about 2 p.m., locked her up and headed home. Got a severance that wasn't shit, but got unemployment for a bit while I looked for something better, which though a pittance, was a luxury as I'd never been out of work for more than a week or so in like 10 years at that point. Compusa was a fucking shit stain of an operation, but I really do miss those days sometimes. The job sucked, but the people you worked with were generally pretty awesome. When they started cramming their shelves with merch, I figured they weren't doing well. I feel like if a store that is not a toy store starts selling toys, its days are shortening. Part of that is thanks to them purchasing Think Geek. Walden Books. When one of 2 registers caught fire, the fire department put it out, but rather than pay to haul it away the company left it, a hulk of melted plastic where it was at the checkout. The store closed 2 weeks later. How does a cash register catch fire? Lol. It's amazing how a place is full of books and the fucking plastic register is what caught on fire. Worked at a Hollywood Video. When there was a solid week with less than 10 customers, I knew it wasn't going to last. Luckily it was just my job for while I was in college. Hollywood Video may have fallen to time and progress, but nothing will ever match the high that I would get coming out of that place as a kid on a Friday night with 2 movies and a pack of Twizzlers.
I miss rental stores.
It was so fun browsing and then picking out some candy and popcorn too. I especially liked the one we had at the Albertsons by my house. It was teeny tiny little area with movies to rent, but it was cheap, and then you could get snacks at the store.
Ours turned into a de facto video game store. It was the only place we could still find Sega Genesis games for longest. Still had rentals and all, but most of their inventory was old Game Z. Apparently my autocorrect thinks Sega should be swag.
I worked at Babies R Us for 3 years. For part-timers, our hours would fluctuate based on sales from the previous weeks. If we had a bad week, as much as 75% of us would get called off future shifts. It was so random. I could have 10 hours one week and 34 hours the next. It felt like the employees were not the only ones living paycheck to paycheck.
That is terrible. Like, how can you even live not knowing how many hours a week you are working?
A lot of retail works this way. The employees can't afford to pay the bills having one job, but they can't take a second job because the schedule is unpredictable.
I had a friend who was offered a job at a Walmart but declined after they told her they needed open availability, meaning a second job was out of the question, but also only giving her part-time hours. It was the most ridiculous thing I'd ever heard from a store that large. Walmart is infamous for treating their employees like crap though. I worked at Blockbuster. I was there when they started Blockbuster Total Access to compete with Netflix. You had movies to your account, they mailed the DVDs to you. You can return the DVDs to any Blockbuster as soon as they scan them and you'll get the next movies on your list sent out, so you didn't have to wait as long for turnaround. Even better, you were able to rent a movie at the Blockbuster for free that you turned it in at. It was actually a great service, you could get tons of movies, and it was really easy to get people interested in signing up for it. Foot traffic in stores increases, the amount of candy and snacks we sold increased, we even had an uptick in paid movie rentals for non-new releases, cause parents would exchange their movie for a new release and get a couple for the kids as well. Then they started to change it. Restricted the amount of movies you can exchange each month. Different plans had different restrictions on what movies you could get, how many new releases, etc. It became really difficult to explain to customers because there were so many restrictions in place. After a bit you couldn't exchange a movie in store at all. Foot traffic died again and the chain along with it. I did this for a few months. Had the 3-movie plan so 3 movies at a time would show up, I would watch them and then return those 3 to the store, get 3 free rentals, and watch those while my 3 new ones were mailed to me. I watched so many movies that I would have never rented otherwise, it was great. I actually got to the point I had trouble finding movies I wanted to rent, and when they started with the changes I cancelled the plan. They closed up not too long after. Maybe that plan was a last-ditch effort and wasn't sustainable. It should have been sustainable, it's not like there was ever a shortage of DVDs. They made 30% of their profits off of late fees, and Netflix, plus this new program, made late fees a thing of the past. They put restrictions on it to get people to start paying late fees again, while Netflix was transitioning to being a streaming service. Once movies went digital, the idea of physical rentals died. It's funny though because having basic DVD service with Netflix is still nice because not everything is streamable. I'd still prefer those old DVD rentals just for that. Hit the bell for notifications so you never miss a video. Like, comment and subscribe if you're new here. More great Reddit content coming soon.